All right, so thanks very much for attending tonight. We're going to be talking about the benefits of having a system, and Debbie Roberts from Pure Bookkeeping is going to present tonight. Welcome Debbie. I'm very excited to have Debbie Roberts from Pure Bookkeeping as the guest tonight. Debbie is a co-founder of Pure Bookkeeping and also the co-author of E-Myth Bookkeeper with Michael Gerber. You may know of Michael Gerber, who's written the original E-Myth and E-Myth Revisited. It was one of the go-to books for me when I was building my bookkeeping business. I took a lot out of that book, so Deb was fortunate to be co-author with Michael with the E-Myth Bookkeeper. She started her bookkeeping practice in 2001 and over the next 13 years grew to a team of 12 before she sold it in 2014. Along the way, Deb admits she made every conceivable mistake you can make in growing a bookkeeping business, as you do. The solution and the key to her success were her systems. In 2010, she partnered with Peter Cook to launch Pure Bookkeeping, and the system she created for her business morphed into the Pure Bookkeeping system. And in this webinar, she'll share some of her experiences, including the mistakes that she made, give some tips of what to avoid, and she'll also tell us a bit about the Pure Bookkeeping system as well. So welcome Debbie, and thank you again, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Katrina. I'm very excited to be here. This is, of course, as you can probably imagine, one of my favourite subjects. It's what Pure Bookkeeping is all about, but more than that, it's what, as you just said, it was what created the success or laid the foundations for success in my business. So I love to share that story with as many people as I possibly can to help them avoid the mistakes that I made and set them on the right path. And I know that we're kindred spirits. You also ran a successful bookkeeping business and are now providing the mentoring and workshops to support bookkeepers and to give your message about how to grow a business. So I really enjoy working with you. Thank you very much for having me as your guest.
You're welcome.
All right. You mentioned the E-Myth, and I think that's a good place to start because the moment that I started reading the e-book, E-Myth, the original E-Myth, was my journey, was the beginning of my journey. And I'm sure it would have been completely different had I not read that book. So I know a lot of you, or there may be some that know my story, but I'll just give a brief further outline than what Katrina has mentioned, but specifically about the E-Myth. About 15 years ago, I met Peter Cook at a networking function. I was at the point of I didn't know what to do. I had, grown my business only for about maybe 12 months. My business had grown by word of mouth referrals. I had managed to replace the income from my day job, so I quit that. But I was still full up. I was working nights and weekends. I thought that maybe, I thought logically the logical solution to ease some of the pressure that I was under was to employ a bookkeeper. But I also no sooner thought that, I thought, well, that can't possibly be the right answer because I've just spent the last 12 or 18 months cleaning up messes left behind by bad bookkeepers. So there was no way I was going to risk my reputation being damaged. And then how do you know which one that you're putting on is actually a good one? And so I had this conundrum was going round and round in my head. And then I met Peter. I met Peter Cook at a networking function. He introduced himself as a business coach. I thought, oh, I'm pretty sure business coaches probably know the answer to this dilemma that I've got because I can't seem to figure it out. So I met with him and explained that I didn't trust anyone. I had explained my situation, and at the very first meeting, he said, do you think that if you took the information in your head and wrote it down and taught someone to follow that system and had a bunch of checklists, do you think that would work? And I went, yep, I could see how that could work. Theoretically, it sounded logical. didn't know that the detail. Being a bookkeeper, we always go down into the detail saying, yeah, but how would I actually do that? He was just wanting me to think big picture. Would that work? And I went, yeah, possibly. The other thing that he did was he gave me a copy of the E-Myth, the original E-Myth. And I'm looking at it right now, actually. It's dog-eared and it's got pink highlighter, scribbles all over it, and pages turned up that I wanted to remember. And but it became my Bible. It became my handbook. And I studied it over and over and took notes and couldn't believe it. I just I absorbed everything that was in it. I couldn't believe that Michael Gerber could actually be writing a book about me. I thought he'd written the book about me, about my story. And as it turned out, and when I read more and the more work I did in this area, I realized that these are his fundamental principles in every business, and they can be applied to every business. So you can imagine how proud I was or actually blown away, when he heard about what I was doing with Peter and Pure Bookkeeping and approached us in 2013 to co-author one of his vertical books, The E-Myth Bookkeeper, taking the principles that I valued so highly about creating systems and then applying it specifically to the bookkeeping industry. I was gobsmacked. So I just want to mention briefly about some of his principles, which are still as relevant today as they were 30 years ago. The original E-Myth is the biggest selling business book of all time. Essentially, what Michael Gerber says is the E-Myth is an entrepreneurial myth, and that is that small businesses are started by entrepreneurs to make a profit. The truth is, he says, that in the most part, technicians start a business. And if you think of yourself as a typical bookkeeper and what I did, so you work as an employee, that's typically where we start, and that was my experience. You work as an employee, you think, you know what, I'm only being paid this amount of money, they're taking double what they're paying me. I could go out and have my own business, charge double what I'm being paid at the moment, have flexibility and the lifestyle that I'm after. But the thing is, you're a technician who decided to work for yourself because of all of that. You wanted more time and more money and more flexibility. And Gerber says the fundamental mistake is that technicians make is that because you understand the technical work, you think you understand how to run a business. So now when you say, yes, I've started my business, you find yourself in a situation where the job you knew how to do and you know how to do so well has become one job you know how to do well, plus a dozen others that you don't know how to do at all. And that was a revelation. So I want to talk about the role of the technician, and because it's really important in how I came to build the systems in my business, and something that I want you to be aware of so you can be thinking about the systems that you're going to create. So the reality was that even though I thought I was a business owner, I was actually a technician that was self-employed. So I'd basically bought myself a job, and I was trying to solve my problems, still thinking like a technician. And Gerber says, these are quotes from his book actually, that the technician thinks if you want to do it right, do it yourself. One of my quotes is, the answer to my problems is just to work harder and faster and longer. Gerber says the technician lives in the present and is task-driven, which is very appropriate for bookkeepers. We bank recs, BAS deadlines, tasks, do this, procedures, all of that. And we live in, this is what we need to do now, and this is the deadline by that date. So we live in the present and very task-driven, and in our case, it's deadline-driven as well. He also says to the technician, thinking is unproductive unless it's thinking about the work that needs to be done. This was very much the case for me, and I think there's probably many here that can relate to this. I actually felt both guilty and resentful if I spent time working on my business. So if Peter Cook and I had a had one of our annual planning sessions where we would spend a day planning that next 12 months and looking back and reviewing the last 12 months and that sort of thing. I would come away from that kind of satisfied, but also a little bit frustrated that none of that was billable hours. And now I've got to go back and do the real work, in inverted commas. Now I've had to play with all this other fun stuff. I've now got to go and do the real work. And it took me a long time to value just thinking about my business and planning and visualizing where I wanted to be. Gerber goes on to say that the technician's usual experience is one of frustration and annoyance at being interrupted in the course of doing what needs to be done, in inverted commas, to something new that probably doesn't need to be done at all. So when we're learning different skills in different areas of our business, it feels uncomfortable. You don't really know what you're doing. You don't know if you're doing the right thing. It's like anything new. And you kind of think, I want to just get back into what I'm comfortable with. I can get the bookkeeping done. I know I've got these deadlines. I'm going to get paid for the work instead of just the thinking of the work. And an analogy I often make is to a helicopter. So when you're a technician, you're down on the ground. You can see the grass. You can see the pebbles on the ground. You can see the insects and everything. That's the detail of the work that we do. What you need to do in order to create the right systems that you need, to even identify what systems you need to hop in a helicopter. Now, if you imagine being in a helicopter and lifting off the ground and you no longer can see the details, you can't see the grass, you can't see the stones, you can't even, the houses, the people are just little dots of people and the cars look like toy cars. But what you can see when you lift your head up is towards the horizon. And what you can see is the direction that you want to go in. And when you are coming down back to where the technician is, part of the way down to the ground, the manager is there working out what route is going to be taken. So you are the leader in your business. That's when you've got your leader's hat on. You're creating the vision. Where do I want to be in 3 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Oh yes, there I can see on the horizon. That's where I want to be. As the helicopter's landing, the manager says, right, that's the vision. So what's the route I'm going to take? I've got the destination. I can put the GPS in my car, and now I'm going to create the systems and the strategies to get where the leader wants to go. And then the technician, so we as the technician, we're the ones that do the work to get there. But we've got to develop, we're just 1 in 3 people, but it's actually, so it's 3 in 1 person, but it's actually more than that as well, because there are a number of domains in the business that you need to become skilled at, like marketing and HR and things like that. That takes a long time to get those skills, but they are the systems that you need to work on. That's the manager's role, to create the systems and the strategies that the technician will then follow. It's a little bit schizophrenic really in some respects. So working in the business is when you're the technician in the domain of production, and I know Katrina does work on these domains and leadership and things like that in her Bookkeeping Business Mastery course and in her mentoring and workshops that she does as well. I didn't know anything about this when I first met with Pete. I was a technician doing the bookkeeping, and I thought that's all I needed to do to grow a business. He helped me realize what the domains of the business are and how to spend and to appreciate spending time in each one of those domains and creating the systems and the strategies so that we would get from the start to where the vision is that I had for my business. And that's working on your business. And I reckon that probably the reason that you're here, or the fact that you're here, means that you're already aware that you need to be doing more than what the technician is telling you to do, that you need to be thinking strategically. And so that's great that you're here. So that was the first revelation. The second revelation is, for me, that I needed to change. I thought that all I was doing was transferring my bookkeeping skills that I had as an employee to being self-employed. What I didn't appreciate was how much change would be required both personally and professionally in order for me to be able to grow a successful business. It's been a very humbling experience. It's been very gratifying. It's been an absolute revelation for me. I needed to learn other skills in the other domains. I needed to face my fears, step out of my comfort zone. And as I said, that part of my journey has been transformational. It certainly has been empowering, and it's something that I want to encourage you to keep doing. It was one of the unexpected benefits that I received growing my business. And the third revelation for me was that I needed to systematize my business. And that's what this is all about. But I really felt it was important to set the scene, if you like, for why I created the systems and my thinking around that. So why have systems? Firstly, so you can grow your business to put on staff, giving you flexibility and scalability. Secondly, to exit your business. Systems will enable you to gradually step back from your business so it's not so dependent on you. Now, your exit strategy might not be to sell it. There might not even be an opportunity. There might not be an offer to purchase your business. But if you were able to work 1 or 2 days in your business as in a leadership role and maybe helping out with the HR and the marketing, and you had your team working in the production domain, then that's probably something you could sustain for some time. But systems are the key to that. They are the absolute key. And thirdly, the more systems you have in place, the more the more flexibility you have, but the more valuable your business is. You don't necessarily need to have systems if you don't intend to grow just beyond yourself, but I'm going to assume that everyone here has this kind of exit strategy and plan in mind. So that the typical thing that happens is when people get to the point, bookkeepers get to the point of retiring, they just find other bookkeepers that they know will look after their clients and walk away. Well, when you've got systems in place, it increases the value. It makes your business more appealing to accounting firms and large bookkeeping firms when they know that you've got systems in place and it's not dependent on you. So now I'm going to get into the bit about what systems you need. I reckon the 3 areas, or the 4 areas actually, we're going to cover bookkeeping, marketing, HR and back-end systems. And I reckon we could probably do a webinar on each one of those separately. So I'm going to condense it. I won't be able to cover everything, but I hope I cover enough to give you some ideas about what systems you're going to create. Please post your questions in the chat box here, and Katrina can interrupt me if there's something that a burning question that you don't want to leave without having answered. I'll do the best I can, otherwise I'll give you details of where you can contact me later. So you need systems for how the bookkeeping is done. That was that idea that Pete said. If you took the systems that you've got in your head about how you do the bookkeeping and what so many people like you, and they keep referring business, and accountants keep referring business to you, if you took those systems and wrote them down and taught someone to follow that, would that work? That was the systems that I'm talking about with the bookkeeping. And my saying is, and you might have heard this if you've been to any of our seminars in the past or watched a webinar, that if you put 10 bookkeepers in a room, there would be 10 different ways of doing the same thing, and half of them would be wrong. It's impossible to audit if you don't have systems about how the bookkeeping is done. And if you don't have systems, you'll encounter the issue that I had when my systems weren't good enough. What I did was I trained the bookkeeper to do the work. Then I was still billing out hours, so I would go away and do my own work, do the billable work for clients. Then I would come back to my office, check and spend the next few hours checking and correcting the work and updating the systems so that to avoid that bookkeeper from doing that again, and increasing their skills. So that is exhausting, and if you don't have the right systems and enough detail in your systems, you will be forever checking the bookkeeper's work and correcting it as well. The other mistake I made when the systems weren't good enough was, and I ran out of time, was I hired other experienced bookkeepers and I paid them to supervise. So they were called supervisors, and they supervised the less experienced bookkeepers. That was building up between 2005, 6, 7 kind of period. In 2007, I nearly went broke. I don't know if you're aware of that part of my story. I nearly went broke because I was paying supervisors to check other bookkeepers' work, and there wasn't the margin in the bookkeeping dollar. I also made a bunch of other unwise mistakes, like I put on a full-time bookkeeper without having enough work for her. I put on an admin person because I had the wrong model, and I had an admin person who was actually managing the workflow and assigning bookkeepers to the work. So that was also money was hemorrhaging from my business. And I would have gone broke. When I said I nearly went broke, I would have gone broke, except I had to have a very difficult conversation with my husband and say, I'm in this situation, I need $30,000 to pay for 2 buses, and there's no money. I've made some really bad decisions. So we had to draw down our line of credit. And that wasn't a conversation, that wasn't a pleasant conversation, I can promise you. And we did a lot of soul searching, and both agreed that that was the right move, that there is still potential in the business to be profitable. I just need to turn it around. And it took me 18 months of absolute slog to turn that around, to pay back the debt, to change the model. And it was during that time, 2007-8, that I just completely focused my attention on the systems, because I had to change the model, and the solution was the systems. The kind of systems that you need to be thinking about documenting, because that was one of the tricks. Well, how do I know what am I actually going to document? And what I decided to document processes that to correct mistakes that bookkeepers made, which damage the integrity of the data. So, like you would probably, as I did, think that this is a basic mistake and surely no one would do this. And that's leaving old unreconciled transactions in the bank rec area. So you've bookkeepers that do the bank rec and leave 10 or 20 or 30 or any number of old unreconciled transactions that go for the past years, in previous financial years and everything, and they just leave them sitting in the window, and they just reconcile that part that they know that they handled. And when I've addressed this in the past, I've said, why, how can you what is that? Do you realise what that means? That means that there's been an error somewhere. You can't process a transaction out of a bank account if it hasn't actually come out of the bank account. So it's gone somewhere else, or it's come out of somewhere else, or it's been double entered or something. That can affect your profit and loss. That affects your balance sheet. That can affect your GST, and it can possibly affect your tax returns, payment summaries, everything. I know I'm as you're here on at this webinar, you already know all that. But these are the mistakes that the bookkeepers make, and they continue to make these mistakes as well now. So it's no different to when I first started. These are the types of mistakes that bookkeepers make now. They don't reconcile the GST control account with the GST reports. In fact, they don't even think that the balance sheet is their domain. They think that's why they don't reconcile the transactions in the balance sheet, because they say, well, that's for the accountant. Or they leave the old unreconciled transactions there because it was there before they got there when they arrived in the job. Or they didn't do it, so they're not taking responsibility for it. They don't even know how to fix it or where to look for it anyway. And the balance sheet is the domain of the accountant. So he fixes up all the stuff at the end of the year. And that, for me, was sacrilege. it was my goal was to provide a clean data file to the accountant at the end of the year and not get any questions. If I did get questions, what I would do is go back to the system that I had created and tweak it. So if an accountant asked me a question about I need this information or I need that or whatever, I'd go, right, okay, I need to add that to the system for the end of year BAS preparation because the accountant likes that. So that was my incentive. Any questions that the accountant had. Also, any questions that the bookkeepers, my team, asked me, or anything that they either did or didn't do which damaged the integrity of the data. It always came back to bite me, but I would say, rather than lash out, I would say, okay, that's happened. I need to fix that, but what system do I need to create, or how do I improve my current systems to avoid that from happening again? So it was every time, it was what system do I need to create? And things like another system you must have is that with the 10 bookkeepers in a room, 10 different ways of doing the same thing, if they're all saving files differently, if you file your client's paperwork and it's all filed differently, if they're not, if they have a different way of doing a bank reconciliation or entering bills or that sort of thing, how do you know if a bill has been entered? What's their filing system for gathering the information? In order for you to replace your bookkeepers with another bookkeeper, you've got to have a uniform way of doing the basic things which substantiate all the transactions and make sure that if you were to put someone in place, they would go, oh yeah, there's those saving protocols there, right, there's the last pass that was done, I see that, right, there's the client's bookkeeping manual, yep, there's all the other reports there, I've got all that there. And it's the same, it looks the same from one client to another. So all our folders in the Pure Bookkeeping system, the client folders are all identical and they've got the same reports in them from one client to another. You've got to have uniformity about that. A few tips. As I said, I could probably do a whole webinar on what bookkeeping systems, but I am going to show you what's in Pure Bookkeeping as well, and that might give you some other tips about what you need to create. But don't make assumptions that any bookkeeper that you put on is going to do the correct thing. So don't make assumptions. You need to have a way of tracking what work was completed, the hours worked. I know with value-based pricing and that model, you will be charging differently, but in my opinion, you need to know who's done the work, exactly what work was done and how long it's taken. You also need to set expectations with your team that the work should take you around about this amount of time. You need checklists for BAS and IAS preparation, very, very detailed checklists to make sure that the bookkeeper doesn't miss any steps. So bank reconciliation completed, tick. Credit card reconciliation completed, tick. No old uncleared transactions in the bank account, tick. So a very detailed checklist for what you would normally do before you prepared a BAS and before you prepared an IAS and before you completed end of year and before you completed the payment summaries, before you did the reporting for your clients. What steps do you take to do that before you do all those things? Now, this is an excruciating process, I must say. I'm not going to say this is easy. I remember saying to Pete, what time of the day am I supposed to do that? Midnight till dawn. You know, I didn't have any time to do that. And writing detailed checklists and manuals is excruciatingly painful. We estimate so the systems before we started Pure Bookkeeping were written over, they were updated every year and constantly for 10 years. And over that time, we estimate I probably spent about 2 years full time. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you've got to start somewhere. Start with one client, start documenting the processes that you do for each of that client. Client's bookkeeping manual is another system that you've got to create for each client, which details specifically the processes for that client. So for the sake of time, I'm going to move on. I probably spoke a bit long about that, but it's really important. Marketing systems I'm going to skip through a little bit because I want to talk about HR as well. If you're like me and like most other bookkeepers, you won't like marketing. And our preferred method of getting clients is to do a good job and referrals will come. And that's actually a good marketing strategy. But it's not really good enough to create momentum when you are starting to build a team and you need to keep feeding them work. So you need to create momentum around your marketing, and systems for me were the answer, because I would avoid marketing. Pete realised that early on in the piece. He'd say, Deb, you need to ask your clients for referrals. And I go, yep, right, okay. And you need to meet with accountants. I go, yep, yep, yep. You know, the accountants that you know, yeah, yep, 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 I'll do that. And I just didn't, because it was uncomfortable and I didn't like to do that. So I would avoid doing it. And then we'd have our meeting next month and he'd say, right, how many accountants did you meet and how many clients did you talk to? And I go, didn't get to that. I was really busy. So we had to create a system, and I created scripts to tell people that I know. I created PowerPoint presentations, a presentation for prospects, a presentation for accountants. It's how to door knock, a script for how you door knock. See, you really need your 60-second infomercial. If you're a member of BNI, that term would be familiar. You need to have your elevator pitch, 60-second infomercial, and be able to have that roll off your tongue fairly quickly and easily and confidently as well. And the only way you can do that is to prepare first. So you prepare the script and then you practice it. Practice it with real people, real life people, husbands, wives, children, your dog, your cat, friends, family, anyone that will care to listen. When you're meeting with accountants, and I recommend you create a PowerPoint presentation to keep you on track, tell the accountant the most important things about your business, then I recommend you create this PowerPoint presentation and you practice that as well. Also practice that on your own accountant. And there's two little tips about when you're meeting with an accountant. Start off with the accountant that you know. When you are presenting your services to that accountant, then ask them two questions at the end. The first question is, do you know, an obvious one, do you know any clients who could use my services, or any other clients if you're already working with the accountant? And the second question, and not so obvious, is do you know any other accountants who are having problems finding good bookkeepers? And then when you get that name of another accountant, you show them the presentation and you ask them those two questions at the end. Really effective marketing strategies. My conversion rate for prospects and my what I call a preferred bookkeeper agreement that I had with accountants, the conversion rate for that soared when I was prepared and when I practiced it. So create PowerPoint presentations, create momentum around your marketing. The more prepared I was in my business, the more I was likely to do it. So prepare, practice and perform are the 3 Ps. Create a system for onboarding new clients. New client packs, have your presentation in that, engagement letter, have your terms there. That's when you ask for referrals, when you're meeting with new clients. Have that in your engagement letter. You promise you'll do the same with them as well. Setting up direct debits, all that's part of your onboarding new clients. HR is the next lot of systems. This is a big one, and as I said, I could do a whole webinar about this. I'm going to really spend about 5 or 6 minutes on it. It was the hardest nut to crack for me. And if you do know my story, if you've read the E-Myth Bookkeeper, you'll know the story of the accountant that I recruited, because I was overawed by the fact that I was going to be hiring an accountant. I was really excited about where that might take my business, and on his resume it said that he had MYOB skills. So this is going back 15 years when MYOB was the kingpin in the industry. And only to arrive at the client's premises when I had told him how good this accountant was going to be, to find that the accountant didn't even know how to put in a purchase. Like he did not actually get started. Demoralizing, degrading, gut-wrenching, and many other adjectives like that came to my mind. I said to Pete, I screamed to Pete that I quit. I am not doing this anymore. I am sick of making mistakes around HR. I don't know how to recruit anyone. I don't think I can ever learn how to do that. We have to find a way of testing the candidate before we put them with clients. So you need to systemize the recruitment process. At the very least, you need to find a way of testing the candidate before you recruit them. So I'm going to give you some tips around this. The way I recommend you do that is to at least sit them beside you and have them walk through the demo file of your preferred software. Ask them questions. Where do you put in the bills? How do you reconcile the GST control accounts? How do you prepare the BAS? What do you do when the BAS is prepared? How do you reconcile bank accounts? Where do you put in a sales? Just ask a bunch of questions to at least prove that they can move around and navigate the software. So make sure you ring the referees. That's another tip. I tested a guy who was actually did very well in our skills test, and I rang his referee and had a lot of trouble getting through to her. She kept leaving messages, and she finally rang me back and she said, I really didn't want to ring you because I feel kind of embarrassed. She said, I don't know why this guy put my name down, because I'm not going to give him a good referral. And I said, that's surprising, because he actually did really well in my skills test. And she said, he's actually a very good bookkeeper, but he's got a very bad attitude. And she said the day after he was recruited and started working for her, he started going into her office and telling her how she should run her business when he didn't know anything about it. So although I skills tested him, ringing the referees was a critical step, and that is the step that you must do as well. Don't believe the resume. So people will, you don't even really know who has written the resume, but you assess it, but you've got to make sure you test it. Make sure you do an induction. Once you recruit the right bookkeeper, make sure that you do an induction. So the one we've got in the Pure Bookkeeping system takes 1 to 2 hours, where you spend time with that new recruit outlining your philosophies, your vision and mission statement, and also your administrative processes, how you run your office, how they're going to get paid, what's the dress code, what's the rule about calls, personal and unrelated business calls. All those things. You do not make assumptions that the bookkeeper would do things the way you do things yourself. Another tip is don't give a new bookkeeper to a new client. All the work should flow through you until you get to a point where you have recruited a specialist who is as good as you, and they will take over the rescue jobs, and the work will flow through them. That's a happy day, I can promise you, when you get to that. Don't give a new bookkeeper a new client, because the bookkeeper, even if you have tested them, you haven't really seen them work on a real data file and see how they interact and the questions that they ask. And you don't know how long the job should take. So if you get a client where it might be a rescue job, and you don't know if that bookkeeper is actually is skilled enough to do a rescue job, that's a disaster waiting to happen. I made all these mistakes as I was growing my business. Managing the handover. When you do recruit and the bookkeeper is trained and you've written the client's bookkeeping manual and you're doing a nice handover, don't just chuck the client at the bookkeeper. You've got to manage that carefully. Create a system for that. How you manage that handover, make sure you keep in touch with the client on a regular basis. Who's going to communicate with the client? How is the best way of communicating? You need a system for that. I think I'm just trying to look at my other notes here. Yeah, so and assign bookkeepers to a particular client rather than having a pool of bookkeepers who just do any clients. They will build their own relationship with clients, and that's really important. They feel better about that. The client feels more secure having the same bookkeeper, but it's important that you have created a system of touch points with that client to make sure everything is all right, and to also make sure that the client understands that it's you that they're engaging with, not the bookkeeper that's been assigned. Now the final thing I want to talk about is you need documented systems for how you run your business and how you track the workflow. They need to be so detailed that at the right time you could replace yourself with an operations manager who could take over the day-to-day running of your business. Then that's when you'll be able to free up time and work just a day or two in your business. A good place to start, I think, is your billings. I know it can be a bit nerve-wracking when you're handing over your billings, but you need to make sure that the system is really tight, really documented checklist and a manual if you need to explain the process, and then you supervise that until the person that you've got your 2IC doing that job does it faultlessly for months and months and months before you let go of the reins. It's a good place to start. You recommend to your clients that they outsource their bookkeeping, and that's basically what you should be doing as well in your business when you get to that certain size. There's lots of other ways to manage the back end software and things like that as well. Zero Practice Manager, and I know Katrina does workshops and talks about the back end systems in her Bookkeeping Business Mastery course that she provides as well. Asana is another one that's free for the basic model. Carbon is another one. There's a number of them. It seems to me from what I'm hearing online is that it just depends on what your needs are and how you think through logically whether what a particular system suits your personality, suits your administrative style as well. So play around with them, use the demo of that. You really do need to be making the most of these online add-ons and apps to run the back end of your business, scheduling, so all your checklists can be online. All those checklists that you create can be online and be managed there with reminders and pop-ups and things like that. That will stop the 3 a.m. Bolt up outright out of bed thinking, oh my goodness, did I forget to do this? That's all I'm going to say about the back end of the systems. I'd like to talk about the Pure Bookkeeping system. Are there any questions at the moment?
We'll take a question from Deb Shepherd.
Yep.
She has asked, starting my business as a sole trader, can I complete and write the systems as I go and tweak as I go? So I think this is a good summary of what you have talked about with, creating your systems and, how you do them.
Exactly, and that's exactly how you would start.
Yeah.
And it is going to be easier for you because you've got a smaller number of clients, you don't have staff, you're just a startup. That's the exciting thing about for any startups that are watching this recording or here tonight. The good news is that because everything is smaller, the number of clients, the complexity of your business is much smaller, you can actually put the systems in place so that you can scale your business. And when you think about mine and how I said that I rewrote them year after year after year after year, that was because a question would pop up or a bookkeeper would make a mistake. So I'll go, oh, okay, I'll get back to that. So start to document how you do the processing. Essentially, that's what we want. Keep in mind when you're doing a rescue job and you see mistakes left behind, you think, all right, I need to write, just document, write yourself a note, I need to write a system about how to avoid that from happening because I don't want any of my team. It's possible I might recruit someone who will make that mistake.
Yeah, that's right. And it's impossible to write a system with the being the end result. You need to start with the, you know, as you said, start with one client manual, one checklist,
Yeah.
start at the start and then just work your way through all of the systems or all of the workings within your business to create that end result. And they will constantly be tweaked and evolved over time as well. As you put staff on, your processes will change. You know, you'll think of things that need to be consistent across everywhere. So I think the main thing is to start. That was the biggest thing for me, that I struggled in starting creating systems, because you're in your comfort zone. You just prefer to be the technician and just do the work and not actually create the systems that are going to allow you to back away from being the technician.
Yes.
So you need to be very mindful of getting the stuff out of your head. The sooner the better. It might not be perfect, it might not come out in the right way, but next time you do it, you will tweak it and you will improve it over time.
Yes. And it does take extra time. That's the double-edged sword about this whole thing, creating systems. It takes extra time, which if you're busy, you don't have. But if you don't do the systems or create the systems, you will never free up the time that you need to have the business that you really want, the business that the leader in you saw. I want to have flexibility. I want to charge appropriately. I want to make money out of this. I want an entrepreneurial business. And you will never have that if you don't spend time and a little bit, just today, what am I doing today? What am I doing with this client? That's the only way you will have that entrepreneurial business, by spending time creating the systems.
Exactly. That was our only question for the night.
Terrific. Well, what I'm going to do now is talk about the Pure Bookkeeping system, and I thought it would be appropriate to actually demonstrate it for you. I'll do this as quickly as I can. It won't be comprehensive, but it will give you an outline of the systems that we created, or I created over those years. And here we are. This is what we call PB Central. So the Pure Bookkeeping system is all online. Our community is online. This is where we all hang out. This is where we post questions. We've got various forums, which I'll demonstrate for you. This is where all the system lives. As you can see, we've got a few extra menu items here that you wouldn't possibly see when you logged in, but we've got the ones that are relevant to you. We've got MYOB, QBO, Reckon, Xero, sales and marketing, and HR, as well as our community. Firstly, the bookkeeping systems, I'll just demonstrate where it all lives with Xero. So this is our forum for Xero. If you've got any questions, this is where our licensees post any questions that they've got, either about the Pure Bookkeeping system or about Xero in general. So that's our forum. This is where our manual lives. And you can see that our manual is made up of 6 parts, plus an introduction and the implementation of the system. So we've got over here, we've got the intro to the system, part 1 general, we've got getting started, general processing systems, we've got things that people don't do, setting up PBS specific accounts, spend money transactions. We've got a module there for the client's bookkeeping manual. It's one of the templates in the system, how to create it. Uniform filing processes, whether using paper or paperless office. The session checklist is one of the templates in the system which we use to document how the bookkeeping is done, how long the bookkeeping took, which bookkeeper did it, and what work was completed. So we've got a whole module there about how to complete the session checklist. It's one of the most important checklists in the system. The balance sheet, as I said to you before, is where bookkeepers usually get it wrong. If they're going to get it wrong, it's because they don't pay attention to the balance sheet. So we have instructions about how to reconcile every balance sheet account. We've got part 4 is about BAS and IAS preparation. We've got checklists for the BAS preparation, checklists for the IAS preparation as well. Part 5, end of year, again BAS and payroll payment summary preparation. end of year reporting, and general reporting for your clients, the sort of reports that you can provide for your clients. It basically covers everything that you need to and every documented process you need for your bookkeepers to follow the same processes. In order for them to learn, in this area here we've got our templates. This is the same, this is identical for every version, so I'm not going to demonstrate all the bookkeeping areas. It's the same for every version. We've got an implementation checklist so that you can create a project to implement the system once you learn what it's about. How you learn what it's about is doing our training program. So this is the Zero training program that covers the first 3 parts of the Pure Bookkeeping system, and it's a Q&A, multiple choice, where you read the instructions in the manual. So you click on the link, read the instructions there, and then you start the test, and you then say what's the consequences of, you answer all the questions. It will show you what you've got right and what you've got incorrect. It's not, there's no tricks to this, unlike the skills test, which I'll show you shortly, but this is not designed, this is actually designed for you to pass. The skills test is designed to trip you up and to trip up your candidates. This is designed for you to pass, so it's not complicated to do. We just want to make sure that you, and in particular your team, have read the manual and understood it and have ticked the boxes at the end. At the end of the program, it takes about 8 hours to complete this training program. It's a self-paced training program. At the end, you and your staff will get a certificate to say that you've completed it, and a logo that you can put in your on your marketing collateral as well. So that's the bookkeeping side of it. As I said, we've got one for each of the versions. We've got the sales and marketing. So these are all the systems, sales and marketing systems that I used in my business. Again, we've got a forum here where you can post any discussion that you want, any question that you've got. We've got the manual. And on this landing page, we've got a short video and the outcome. So what's the outcome when you complete all the modules of the sales and marketing program, how long it's going to take you to complete each module, where you need to start. We have got the 7x5 marketing strategies. So these are 7 different marketing strategies to get 5 clients from each one in 12 months, which should be enough to fill your books. I've spoke before about meeting with accountants, so we've got networking information about how to network with accountants. This is the presentation for accountants, how to prepare, that I mentioned before, and I explain slide by slide what information is included in that and what the script is that you say when you're talking into that slide. They're all customizable. All the templates are customizable. You add your logos, change the wording to suit your business, and then you hit the ground running. We've got prospect presentations, how to network with prospects, how to respond, scripts for everything. Presentation for prospects, it's the same type of prospect presentation that we have for accountants. There's 3 different kinds because I've identified 3 major groups of clients that you are likely to encounter. So you just customize each one of those, and then you what you need to do to prepare for the presentation, what you do during the presentation. So we talk about gathering information, doing a health check of the data file, what to do at the end, how to close, what you do for engaging a new client. They are in excruciating detail. In fact, Pete says that probably these are in more detail than what he would need, because he is a natural sales and marketing person. He's an outgoing, he's an extrovert. I'm an introvert. Most bookkeepers are introverts. And we don't like selling ourselves. This system will give you the confidence to be able to produce a professional presentation and speak professionally at networking groups with people that you know. There's a 60-second infomercial in here that I mentioned before when we talk about networking. So there's basically, there's just selling yourself in 60 seconds and a suggested script for that. So there's basically everything that you need to grow your business to the size that you want, whatever that is for you. This is where our templates live. And we've got templates for everything that's in the manuals, and there's links all over the place that you can download those. The HR, we have this again. This is the lands on the forum discussion page where you can post any questions that you like about HR. We've got the manual, and the manual basically explains the HR process. And we've got the HR process. We start from the very first moment you place the ad, right through to handing over your clients, and module 11 is if you're already a mature business with existing staff, you will need to transition them into Pure Bookkeeping, and there's a process for that as well. So we explain what that process is. You'll see we give you instructions, detailed instructions about how to review the resumes, how you set up your desktop organisers, how you assess them, that we've got a phone interview template, how you score it, what you say to unsuccessful candidates, again in a huge amount of detail, what you do during the phone interview, which is what you do in the next step of the recruitment process. We have a skills and speed test. We've got them for MyOb, Reckon, Xero and QBO. What you do during the interview, how to prepare for the interview, calling referees, all of those things I mentioned earlier have all been documented. The orientation or induction process, the template that you use for that, and how you explain each one of the sections you've got in the system in that process. How to hand over your staff, and you can see here I've got don't give a new client to a new bookkeeper, and that's #1 rule. Managing the handover, keeping in contact, all those things that I mentioned, there's a system in here for that. And as I said, we've got what you need to do to transition your existing staff, if you have them, to Pure Bookkeeping. And the templates that support that in this area here. Everything that you need for the skills test. The other thing that you get, and I might just minimize that now, and I've spoken about the bookkeeping, the marketing, the HR. I just want to mention the support that you get from Pure Bookkeeping. So yes, you get the system, you get all the forums and things like that, but what you also get is, and you get the training program. After you've completed the training program, you are eligible to join what we call our Pure Bookkeeping Mastermind group. Now there's about 20 or over 20 groups at this point in time running across Australia. Some of them are virtual groups if we don't have enough people in your area. We've got them in every state though. So they are a group of licensees that get together on a monthly basis to discuss the implementation of the Pure Bookkeeping system and anything else to do with growing your business. They are chaired by an ambassador who's been handpicked by me, and there's an agenda every month and actions that you need to take. It's, in some respects, it gives you the accountability and support that I got when I was working with Pete. So turning up every month, saying, okay, what are your actions this month? Did you get, or in the last month, did you get them done? You have goal setting every 3, 6, 9, 12 months. You review your goals, and every 12 months you set new goals. They're a fabulous group of supportive people. There's a monthly webinar that I run, similar to this here, where I often have a guest. Katrina has actually been my guest 2 or 3 times at our webinars. That's what I didn't mention to you. We've got a resources section in Pure Bookkeeping Central where you can access previously recorded webinars. I do a monthly newsletter, a weekly blog, and one thing, and the reason why Pure Bookkeeping has been endorsed by the Australian Bookkeepers Network is because of the support that you get. You get unlimited support to me to help you with the implementation of the system. I know you might find that hard to believe with hundreds of licensees, but it's a fact. and I've never turned anyone away, and there hasn't been a problem or an issue that I've encountered that I haven't been able to solve. A lot of it is solved with our community itself. You can post your question on PB Central, it gets answered there. There's moderators that actually keep the system up to date. So basically you're outsourcing your system, the systems for your business. You outsource that to Pure Bookkeeping if you were to become a licensee. So the Pure Bookkeeping system is a license. It's not a franchise. It's a license to use the system. There is obviously costs associated with that and a monthly license fee. Because this is recorded, I don't want this to get dated, so I'm not going to go into detail about the costing. You can jump online to our purebookkeeping.com.au website and check us out there. It has got the costing there. You can put in an inquiry. I'm happy to give you a call if you'd like a call from me to talk in detail about the costings. But this is a license to use the system. It's not a franchise. I just wanted to clarify that with you. And seeing as we are wrapping up, and I just want to make an offer actually. As a thank you to Katrina and as a gift for her community, we're offering a copy of the eMyth Bookkeeper, normally valued at $27.95 for free. You just pay for the postage. Katrina will send the link out to you. There's a promo code BKHQ. I'd love for you to have a copy of the book. I'm sure it will be a game changer as the original eMyth was for me, and I'd love to have you receive that with my compliments. So I think that just about wraps it up, Katrina. You're muted.
Sorry about that, I muted myself. Yeah, I also wanted to mention or just reinforce that the Pure Bookkeeping system is such an awesome system that includes everything that is done for you already. So that's a system that I also purchased into. I think it was 2011, and utilised the resources there, and certainly the support of Deb during the time when I was growing my business as well. So yeah, it's an excellent source of resources and templates and everything that's done for you, which is one way of completing your systems very quickly. So yeah, thank you, Deb, for that presentation. I've got a few people just, Jacqueline's totally awesome. A few thank yous there coming through.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Deb. From Catherine. They've really enjoyed listening to your story and your experiences, and just being reinforced that it's just the simple things that we do need to jot down and document. Like, we all take a lot of the stuff we do for granted, but to move away from that technician role, we do need to create these systems, and it's not rocket science. It's a system that can be done by everybody at any time and just keep moving forward, and it's just so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you again. Melissa's also said thank you. Everything resonates with me 100%. And Deirdre's also made a thank you. So that's
thank
awesome.
you very much. That's very kind.
Yeah, that's, well, thank you for giving away your time and showing us, what's important to every bookkeeping business is creating this.
My pleasure.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. Jacqueline's just made a comment. We work in an industry of systems. PBS gives us a system for our business, not just our clients. Exactly. Yep, so you must be a converted.
Yes, Jacqueline, she's gorgeous.
Right. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. So thank you all for attending.